All right, we are live. We are live. So maybe we'll give a couple minutes for anybody that wants to show up to come in. And I'm going to share my screen so that we can get started too. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 estate planning tips or tips around estate planning, I would say. Before we get started, my name is Amar Shah, and this is
Rafael Melendez.
Yeah, and we both work for different firms. I work for Client First Capital. Raphael works for Next Gen Financial Planning, and we thought this is good content to kind of come together to work on together. So the first thing here is we got to do some disclosures. Basically, these disclosures say that we haven't taken your account or your situation into account, and we're not entered into an agreement where we're giving advice. This stuff is strictly educational purposes only. Anything you want to add to that, Raphael?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just meant to be an educational resource for whoever's watching. So we can't really advise on specific situations at this time, but these are some things to consider.
Yeah, excellent. So let's just get into it here. So we're going to look at 5 things, right? So we're going to look at setting up a will, and why you want to focus on your will when you're starting out. The benefits of setting up a trust, especially if you have a house or if you have young children or anything else like that. Drafting up your power of attorney and advanced healthcare directives. This is very important. It gives the ability for somebody to legally sign your name or make medical decisions on your behalf. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about maybe the role of life insurance in the big estate planning picture. And then also to understand your parents' long-term financial goals and health and wishes, because that could create some stress for yourself. If you're in this position and then you have kind of like sandwich, like you're going through as well as parents, and then you have younger children as well. So let's start with number 1, focusing on your will, right? So a will basically gets to determine who will inherit your assets and who's going to take care of settling those assets. You typically call that the executor of your will, who's settling your assets. And in the will, it's really important. You and your spouse can identify people that you want to take care of your children, as well as who do you want to take care of the money. It could be totally different people, or it could be the same person, and that's really up to you. Have you seen any examples of people that haven't focused on their will, Raphael, that you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it all the time. A lot of people, especially the clients that I work with, are younger professionals who think that this type of planning is so far out ahead that they don't plan for it. I'd argue that for a lot of younger people who have families, it's probably one of the more important things to focus on. Some bigger names, by the way, if anyone out there is listening that is familiar with, if you're familiar with those superhero Marvel movies, Chadwick Boseman, the actor who played Black Panther, died without a will. Another famous name is Prince. And these are all people who, obviously have a lot of assets. That's not to say that for those people who are still in the wealth accumulation phase, don't need to think about this type of thing. So equally as important for people of all types.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The next thing we're going to talk about here is drafting your power of attorney and advanced directives. So I'm skipping around a little here, but the main part here that I want to kind of go into is that there's 3 different, in general, there's 3 different types of power of attorneys, right? There's a general power of attorney, there's a durable power of attorney, and then there's a special or limited power of attorney. And how I like to think of these is, all 3 give the ability for somebody to legally sign your name. But how I like to think about these specifically is unlimited power of attorneys is like specific to a certain event. You know, if you're buying a house, or if you have an attorney that's representing you, or if you have a tax professional and they're talking to the IRS on your behalf, you know, it's a limited scope power of attorney. Then the opposite end of that is durable power of attorney. You know, doesn't matter what's going on, if you're able to or not able to, they can legally sign your name. And then you have general power of attorney, which, you know, goes into a specific situation that you have that power of attorney available through a period of time. And then you also have healthcare directives. So healthcare directives allow somebody to like pull the plug or save your life. And I think that's, you know, the burden of healthcare decisions and investment or financial decisions don't necessarily have to be the same person. And you sometimes you probably don't want the person. I mean, I've seen it where families where if you have two children and one child is more financially inclined and another child may be physically closer located to you, that they'll split up those duties based off of, you know, their knowledge and their capacity to help family members. And I have a client example, Raphael, that I'll just talk about real quick. Is that most of these documents live in like fancy binders on like bookshelves, you know, and when you need them, sometimes it's at the most inopportune time where they're not available. It's easy to access. And so some of these documents, I would say, is that make sure you have multiple copies, right? Make sure you have copies that your power of attorney has a copy and you have a copy, or you have a digital copy and that's easy to access. I think this is really important because, you know, let's say you have to make some medical decisions and you're in the hospital and you're not going to want to leave the hospital to go find these documents that give you the ability to make those medical decisions for a loved one. You know, you're not going to want to leave their bedside. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I think estate planning in general, but specifically this slide really speaks to is having a plan in place for those moments where you don't want to worry about these things. These are obviously instances where you're facing some sort of healthcare event or something's going on in your life that you don't need this added stress. So, you know, making sure that these are all in place is important.
Yeah, and the key thing here is you're alive, right? I mean, this is directly impacting you, right? It's not one of those things where you know, it's beyond the grave. This is directly impacting you. So that's good. So let's go back here and let's go to this computer doesn't want to work. I'm trying to go back to the slides and there we go. So setting up a trust, right? And trust can be in many different formats. You know, you can have a revocable trust. You can have a living trust. Even irrevocable trusts are big pieces of this. And so one of the things that we want to focus on is that when you set up a trust and you're transferring ownership from assets that you own to the trust, you're going to have to identify a trustee to help you manage those trust assets. You know, so in the beginning, it's obviously the people that put the money into the trust, the grantors. But then upon your passing, who's going to manage those assets within the trust? The big piece when it comes from actual estate planning is that the trust keeps your stuff private, right? It's not going to be publicly disclosed. You're not going to have a probate process in which your trust assets are identified or inventoried. And there are trusts, like the irrevocable trusts, where you can give those assets now, reduce the assets on your balance sheet, and they transfer to your beneficiaries in terms of they can have HEMS powers, which is health, education, maintenance, and support, or that they can have a stream of income from an irrevocable trust, which I think all of these are important to kind of lay out a plan with an attorney. if you're an income beneficiary of an irrevocable trust, and that income is not discretionary, it's said, that could be subject to, in some states, lawsuits, what we like to call in-laws, outlaws, predators, and creditors. They all have access to those irrevocable trusts if it's a fixed stream of income, which you. But now, if those trusts are discretionary, you can say that you're one step removed. Well, now you created some extra protection for yourself. So, setting up the right trust for your situation is extremely important. I'm gonna see if I can go now to life insurance. So, life insurance we typically think of as something unexpected happens, that you have that insurance policy there to replace income, right? And that is a lion's share of the reason why there's a life insurance industry. Now, there are other benefits to life insurance that we're not going to get into today, but there are also different types of policies, and so you want to look at whole life, term, universal life. Let me say that again. There's term insurance, there's permanent insurance. Within permanent insurance, there's whole life, universal life, variable universal life, all different types of policies there. And the big thing is making sure that you find the right one for you, right? And I can give an example of this. When you are, let's say, leaving a workplace and you're able to take your insurance policy with you, it usually converts into a term policy when you leave. And in that policy, if you're, let's say you're extremely healthy, well, you may not want to convert that policy. You may want to get your own policy, because what the underwriters use as the underwriting health class for the average pool in that company, right? So if you consider yourself healthier than the average person there, it's probably not in your cost-effective way of buying term insurance. And the opposite is also true. It's like if you have health issues and you're getting something that's guaranteed underwriting because you bought a group policy, you probably don't want to go out and try to buy a term policy. You probably want to keep that policy through the group plan in place, because you're not going to be table rated, and you're probably going to get the most amount of insurance coverage that you could possibly get. Raphael, you have anything to add to this?
Sure. I'd say, life insurance is so complex. So speak to a financial professional about your situation. But other things that, life insurance might help replace, aside from those living expenses, could be things that you have planned down the line. So think about, if you have kids, if you're leaving kids who you wanted to go to college, are you planning to fund that fully through some sort of life insurance benefit? Paying off large debt, or leaving cash, just for emergencies. So there's a lot of reasons why you might want to consider life insurance, and depending on what's right for you, move forward with speaking to someone about it when you are ready.
Yeah. In our industry, there's really basically two ways that you calculate the insurance need amount, right? Like you have your basic survivor's needs, and then you have your human life value. And your basic survivor's needs is basically, what does your family need to keep their head above water for the next 5 years, right? It's a fundamentally a low amount. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have a human life value. So let's say if we got hit by a drunk driver or something like that, and there's pure negligence involved, and your surviving family is going to sue. And what is the most that they could sue for? Well, in a court case, they would say, what is the economic impact this individual had on their family? And they create a human life value. Not to say that you could sue for more than that for the negligence part, but that is what the base amount is calculated by. And that's the present value of your future income stream till retirement, right? And so that will give you the opposite end. I kind of think of it as like a goalpost, right? On one side, you got your basic needs, and the other side, you got the maximum value. The reality is, wherever you feel comfortable in between is really the place where you want to dial in your life insurance amount specifically to what you want. So like what Raphael said, if you want to fund college education no matter what, right? So that could be basic survivor's needs plus the education costs, right? And so you can tier that up over time until you get to the max. And anywhere in between, wherever you feel comfortable, is the key. And then the last point here that I want to talk about, and this is so important to individuals that are in their like 40s to let's say 60s, in that middle group, is understanding, and even younger people, to understand what your parents' goals in terms of wishes around their health care, their assets, if something were to happen to them. So, for example, if mom and dad become incapacitated or unable to function, what do they actually want to see happen? Do they have long-term care insurance? How are they going to, would they want to sell their primary residence and move into a nursing home or a retirement type community? And these are things that are not going to come up just by on their own. You have to actually proactively ask, because these are uncomfortable conversations. Nobody's voluntarily wants to have them. And so just asking, to get a plan in place and kind of document that plan is going to help navigate those circumstances a lot better than not having that type of conversation. Yeah. So anything to add there, Raphael?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is one of those areas where I feel like it's so obscure and you're not really thinking about it when you're thinking about a financial plan because it involves other individuals, namely your parents. There's always going to potentially be some impact that is left if one of those situations were to arise with them. So understand where they're at, how that might impact your own plan, and that'll hopefully give you some clarity on how to move forward with their estate plan as well.
Yeah, you may be at your peak earning years. Your kids are going to college, etc., and you may be in your peak earning years, expecting to do some catch-up game on retirement savings, and you could get a curveball like this with a parent, right? Yep. And that could really derail your plan. So it's a couple things that are really important to do is making sure that you have a close relationship with a financial advisor, that you're evaluating and contemplating different scenarios or different situations that may play out in your financial plan. So doing kind of scenario analysis, and then looking at your estate plan, parents' estate plan, holistically as like a multi-generational family, and see how one thing could affect other families. I think this is good, Raphael. Let's leave it here. Hey, I really appreciate you hopping on and doing this call. Sure. If you have anything else to add, let me know. Otherwise, I think that's good.
Yeah, no, this was great. I think it's super informational. Hopefully people that are watching got some value out of it. So happy to be here.
Sounds good. If you have questions or concerns or anything like that, please put it in the comments below. And keep in mind, Raphael and I, we got 2 more sessions that we're going to do between now and the end of the month. And we'll try to get those out, and so you guys can all hear different pieces. Do you know, I believe the next one's on taxes, right? The next one we're talking about is taxes.
Yeah, we've got taxes coming up, and then student loans. So options for that afterwards.
So again, if you have questions specific to your situation, please reach out to us. Otherwise, have a great day. Bye.
Okay.